everybody's still tuned in. I see we have several dozen people. I'd say welcome to the day 4 content review. Wow, summary of the day. What a day, huh? I wanted to welcome Dr. Richard Citrin and Michael Couch. I'm going to say these guys are 2 seasoned leadership development pros. I'm really interested in what they took away from this 7 speakers, not counting Sean and myself. Richard, help me. What are you hearing?
Well, for me, there were 2, just really one key takeaway that has a couple of components to it. I love the first 3 talks, but they were so global that it just gave a great perception. Of course, our last 3 speakers, Denise, Ty, and Lori, gave so much drill down on this. The key for me is really around how do we help our people to develop the specific skills associated with what's required for dealing with conflict or using evidence-based data or even moral character. 2 behaviors that struck me. One was, and I do a lot of work around mindfulness, was that without self-awareness as a leader, you really can't address issues like crisis management that Denise was talking about, because the stress reaction just kicks in these kinds of situations, as happens with conflict. So we've got to think about really helping people develop skills around paying attention, being in the moment. I think the other skill that obviously is important was Lori's discussion about conflict, which we know is one of the most difficult skills to develop. And it takes more than, and I'm sure she knows this in her research, and the exercise she had with the long-term care facility was a good example of that, about how you help people to bridge and build personal relationships. And I think really the skill that Lori was emphasizing there was listening, which is such a critical aspect of how we can build innovation on teams as well as success on different teams as well. Is just getting people to focus on some of these basic human behavior skills: listening, paying attention, being responsive, being in the moment. Not skills that are necessarily easy to develop, but I think can be a clear focus of how we can help people translate these findings into some specific behavioral changes.
Yeah. Self-awareness and listening, the basics.
Yep.
What we used to call them the soft skills, now they're really the essential skills.
You're right on. I have a thing about soft skills. I do not like that term. I think it's denigrating. I think it was formed as a way to minimize those skills. I like to think of them as the essential skills.
Yes, exactly. Michael, what's one of your takeaways from the afternoon?
Well, there was a theme that I heard from Seth Godin at the beginning that I thought was phenomenal around innovation. And innovation is a numbers game that you need to evaluate a number of different ideas quickly and to be able to get into the point where you can maximize your investment. And then we heard that from the folks at Giant Eagle this morning. And velocity, that kind of innovation, the numbers game, is culture. So that's the other thing we heard repeatedly, that culture, from David Coulter, saying that culture is one of the hardest things to work on. And as a CEO, you got to be working on it 100% of the time. But culture is behavior. The perception of culture is what people see leaders doing. So having capabilities like Richard talked about and OD folks mentioned, and the role that conflict can play in that, but how organizations handle conflict is culture. How the structure you build behind, we heard in several cases here too, is also a structure. So I think the big takeaway for me today was, those individual, the key things for leaders that they need in terms of self-awareness, but also culture. Culture can be developed, and we got to pay attention to that to be able to drive innovation as well.
Yeah. It was an interesting point about culture too that David talked about, which was that he eschewed analytics around culture, and it was more of kind of a gut instinct around culture that he used. And certainly, someone with his wisdom, I'd respect that. And I'd probably want to look at some kind of analytics around culture to get some clearer diagnostics about that and action steps that can be taken.
Yeah, it can be measured. It can be improved.
Yeah.
When David Coulter mentioned that he thought a CEO should spend 100% of their time measuring and managing the culture, that stood out at me. Edgar Schein from MIT early on talked about the visible and invisible aspects of culture, and he said great leaders should spend most of their time managing culture. So, look, we have 60 seconds. Michael, a last thought before we let people move on for their day?
I think that Edgar Schein quote, I think culture eats strategy for breakfast. Well, I think innovation can be driven by culture too. So it's a great time to spend some time thinking and working on it.
Thank both of you for your insights today, and tune in for day 5 tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Can't wait. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Great job today.